So we got a herd of Tule elk out in the valley floor, and we're gonna try and stalk down this fence line to get a little closer to get some shots, but also not disturb them. I grew up in the California foothills on the edge of one of the most biologically diverse grasslands in the history of the world, California's Central Valley. The valley is still there, but that thriving grassland ecosystem is pretty much gone. Modern Californians have completely converted grasslands to modern use patterns. What's down there? So we got water diversion, utility infrastructure, converted ag land, and suburban sprawl. All we need is a few cows, and we'd have the quintuplet of Central Valley habitat loss. Most of the productive fertile grasslands across the United States and really across the world have been converted largely. This includes the tall grass prairie of the Midwest, the short grass plains of the Southwest, the savannas and grasslands of the Southeast, and those famous prairies of the upper Missouri River where Lewis and Clark saw, the Mandan villages and the grizzly bears and all the millions and millions of bison and elk. As we convert grasslands to modern use, one of the first things we lose are those charismatic wildlife species. The same was true in California. You had pronghorn, you had 500,000 Tule elk, you had grizzly bears, you had wolves. You combine that with millions of migrating waterfowl certain times of the year, and you had a wildlife spectacle that rivaled the Serengeti or the upper Missouri River or the Masai Mara of Africa. Yeah, this is awesome. Oh, there's a bunch of elk, man. Nice. Probably 10 elk. Maybe more. Excellent. Do we want to go set up camp? Lots of light? Or do we want to go see the elk?
Elk.
Elk? We're here in the Carrizo Plain National Monument, and this is kind of a representation of what the southern Central Valley's grassland ecotype used to be like, a little bit of a drier grassland habitat.
Is the Central Valley of California called the Sacramento Valley?
So the Central Valley of California is basically two rivers. So we have the Sacramento River, which flows south, and we have the San Joaquin River that flows north. So when you're in the southern part of the Central Valley, you're in basically the San Joaquin drainage, so it's the San Joaquin Valley, and we're in the north, which is the Sacramento River. It's the Sacramento Valley. It's all part of the Great Central Valley. Great Central Valley of California. And this is located just off the Central Valley, a little higher up, kind of tucked into the Coast Range at about 2,000 feet elevation. And it is absolutely gorgeous out here. Those guys came out of nowhere. The Carrizo Plains is also home to some of those big wildlife species we used to have roaming the Central Valley. You have Tule elk that have been reintroduced. Tule elk have a pretty cool story. So we got a herd of Tule elk out in the valley floor, and we're gonna try and stalk down this fence line to get a little closer to get some shots, but also not disturb them. So what's cool is that we are stalking a herd of elk right now, and we are 100 miles from Los Angeles. It's kind of unheard of. By about 1870, Californians thought Tule elk were gone, just wiped out by all the settlement. There was 2 discovered in a Tule marsh in the southern San Joaquin Valley in like 1876. 2 elk. From those 2 elk, they were kind of taken in by the state of California, and those 2 elk have basically repopulated the state in these kind of managed herds. And here, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife has reintroduced Tule elk. We, of course, while we're here, that's one of the first things we looked for, Tule elk. We tried to film the Tule elk. Kyle and I couldn't even get close to them. We have no cultural traditions, you see, of stalking large ungulates across a treeless, mountainless, bushless plain. Even one time with the wind in our favor, we couldn't crawl fast enough to even get close to them at their natural speed of just grazing.
I'm making progress. There's the truck. What did you just say? What do you have?
So I literally have a green pair of pants and a green camo shirt for this very stalking occasion. And now I'm sweating in this blue thing, and when I have grass stains all over my sweet brownies. You caught me being like, I got grass stains on my pants. You're like, what'd you say? It's pretty good. The Carrizo Plain is also home to the pronghorn, formerly called the pronghorn antelope. It's not a true antelope. Pronghorn is kind of the only remaining member of Antilocapridae, and their closest relative is actually the giraffe. They are North America's fastest land animal. They can run like 60 miles an hour. We also couldn't get close to the pronghorn antelope to film. They were a little too fast and a little too wary. That's also how we kind of like our wildlife in a weird way. We want to film them, but it has a wild feel to it. When you see animals that are seeing you and they're getting out of your way, we definitely like that. And it's also no surprise, right? We pretty much almost wiped out all these grassland species. So the few that survived, the few that hung in there, even if they're reintroduced, they're still coming from a line of survivors. And those survivors survive because they're probably pretty wary of humans.
How high is this rock, this hill above the ground over there?
So we're probably like what? Maybe 50 feet above the Carrizo Plain floor. You know, one thing we've noticed as we've been out here, that the Carrizo Plain isn't totally flat. It definitely has some undulations into it. And so what's actually part of that is that the San Andreas Fault runs right through the middle. Check it out, San Andreas Fault.
Here.
It's the San Andreas Fault. Thought it'd be bigger. It's actually shifted the Carrizo Plain. There's a creek out here, Wallace Creek, that's moved like 400 feet as the great plates that of the Earth's crust move. And so because of that, all this movement occurred right through the heart of this valley. The valley kind of undulates and moves, and we were trying to stalk some elk before, and we thought they were, you know, right in front of us, but they were kind of like going up and down these swales. Swales. We are literally looking at about 100 elk right now. They're far away, kind of blurry, but they're out there in the middle of the National Monument right now. And this is a testament, right? This is a freaking testament to the growing pains that you go through when you try and restore native grassland. This was ranch land. This is private ranch land. It became available for purchase in 1988. The Nature Conservancy, working with California Fish and Wildlife and working with the Bureau of Land Management, they purchased this land, and it's been converted from its native grassland years ago to ranch land, and now it's been converted back to native habitat. You know, I'm used to seeing elk up in the Rocky Mountains and the high alpine areas, and here in this desert grassland ecosystem, we're watching Tule elk, an endemic subspecies of elk to California, out in their native grassland habitat. I don't know, I think this is sweet. This is cool. This is rare stuff, and this is stuff that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that partnership. There's groups out there in the country right now, the American Prairie Reserve in eastern Montana, you know, some of the grassland ecosystem restoration groups in the southeastern United States, in Oklahoma, other places, they're going through the process right now that the Carrizo Plains experienced about 30 years ago. And that's what it takes. It takes federal agencies working with state agencies, working with local partners. And if you work together and you build that grassroots effort, you can restore grasslands. We are just starting to scratch the surface of California grasslands in general, and the Carrizo Plain National Monument. And we hope you stick around. We have a few more grassland stories coming up. This episode features artwork and ideas from A State of Change by Laura Cunningham. As conservationists, one of the things that we can do to measure the health of our current ecosystems is to compare it to the ecosystems of our past, of old California. And if you're curious of what the ecosystems and the landscape of old California may have looked and felt like, well then this book should be on your coffee table. I think it should be on the coffee table of every conservationist in California.
Where the Wild Roam is hosted by Joe Flannery.
My grandfather was a park ranger. My parents were both park rangers. I was the third generation. I've been lucky enough to spend my entire life outdoors, learning and working in conservation. And I'm excited to share that knowledge with you.
With Kyle Lancaster.
Lately, we've been getting into conservation filmmaking. We believe that a conservation ethic begins with education and understanding. Never stop learning about the natural world.
And hey, if you like the show, please support, share, subscribe, follow, like, and all that stuff. Let's start a movement that prioritizes wildlife, wild places, and conservation within our daily lives.